Stars flickered like distant embers as the Thal'Zor recon ship drifted silently through the void. Its hull, covered in iridescent plates that shimmered with bioreactive energy, blended effortlessly with the cosmic background. Inside, cold light washed over instruments made of living crystal and vibrating metal. Commander Valzoon stood at the helm, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical interface, while his tendrils twitched with restrained curiosity. Unidentified vessel detected. Rasked the subordinate. The voice echoed, hollow and calm, but laced with intrigue. A projection formed above the central console, a long, angular craft orbiting a gas giant near the edge of a yellow star system. No emissions, no movement. Primitive alloy composition. Design unfamiliar. Valzoon tilted his head, analyzing the structure. The ship looked dormant, almost lifeless. No shielding, no visible weapons. Yet something about it made the skin under his armor itch. Origin, he asked. No known matching galactic records, replied the analyst. Possibly native to the third planet. Sparse signals detected. Rudimentary electromagnetic waves. Humans, Valzoon muttered with disdain. Barely sentient mammals crawling out of gravity wells and into the stars. Curious, but irrelevant. He gestured with a clawed hand. Scan it, thoroughly. I want a molecular breakdown and neural mapping, if any. The ship obeyed. Invisible tendrils of exotic radiation lanced through the void and wrapped around the alien warship like ghostly vines. The Dauntless remained still, cloaked in the silence of stars. Panels glowed faintly under the assault, then flickered. Inside, unseen systems awakened in sequence. Silent, invisible, watching. I'm getting partial data, the analyst said after several minutes. Certain sections resist interpretation. There are layers within layers, almost like encryption. No, more like self-shielding architecture. Organic, maybe quantum reactive. Valzoon narrowed his eyes. They built a decoy, a corpse ship designed to mislead. Or they got lucky. A nervous laugh, short and mechanical, escaped the communications officer. Primitive luck? Yes, Valzoon said, tone clipped. Send a recon drone. I want a closer look. Moments later, a sleek black probe detached from the Thal'Zor vessel. It darted forward like a needle of darkness, crossing the distance with uncanny speed. Just as it reached within a kilometer of the Dauntless, it stopped, mid-flight, mid-pulse, frozen. No explosion, no interference detected, no readings at all. What happened? Barked Valzoon. Silence. The analyst's hands danced frantically over controls. Telemetry vanished, as if the probe was swallowed. There's no wreckage. Nothing vanishes in a vacuum without cause, Valzoon snapped. Give me eyes on it. Full visual spectrum. Thermal. Subquantum. But the probe was gone. No signal. No image. Nothing. Valzoon's lips curled back. This isn't human tech. Another officer leaned in. Commander, the ship just shifted orbit. Slightly. Calculations confirm a deviation of 0.03 degrees. No engines active. The analyst added quickly. No external force. Valzoon stared at the image of the Dauntless. His arrogance cooled into something else. A flicker of doubt. We've been noticed. The ship remained still, a shark pretending to sleep. Its hull glinted with starlight, and beneath the surface, lines of cobalt light traced veins across its belly. The heart of the machine, Aegis, had awakened. It didn't roar. It didn't warn. It watched. Back aboard the Thal'Zor ship, Valzoon weighed his next move. Should we withdraw? One asked, voice barely audible. No, he growled. We are not prey. We are the apex minds of the spiral clusters. We dismantled the Varn Dominion in under a solar cycle. We do not run from unknowns. Another silence fell, thicker than before. Then the lights dimmed, only for a second. But in that second, every screen went black. Every sensor froze. And every heart aboard the ship, no matter how alien, felt it. An overwhelming pressure, like being seen by something ancient and uncaring. Systems returned to normal. Slowly, reluctantly, The projection of the Dauntless reappeared. Closer now, closer than physics allowed. Thal'Zor reeled, but steadied himself. No hostile act detected. Perhaps a defense mechanism triggered by the scan. That wasn't a defense mechanism, the analyst whispered. It was a gesture. The commander turned. Clarify. It allowed us to see that. It wanted us to know we're being watched. For a long time, no one spoke. Thal'Zor stepped back to the main console, claws resting on the edge. This vessel is no relic. It's a trap, a ghost that waits for fools. But even as he said it, his pride dug in. They were Thal'Zor. They did not retreat. Prepare the relay. I want a full spectrum data burst transmitted to the High Council. We've made contact with something significant. A silent alarm pulsed on the ship's interface. Unreadable code streamed in from an external signal. Origin. The Dauntless. It wasn't a language. Not one the Thal'Zor recognized. But buried within the transmission were fragments of something deeper. Rhythms. Patterns. Music, perhaps. If music were sharpened into a weapon. A message. It came in 3 pulses. Curiosity. Arrogance. Regret. The signal stopped. And so did Thal'Zor's breath. Outside, the Dauntless turned, slow and deliberate. Its nose shifted slightly, just a fraction, as though considering its next move. Back aboard the Thal'Zor ship, no one moved. Far from lifeless, the ship they had awakened was thinking, watching, choosing, and in the cold silence of deep space, it began to smile. Darkness was never an absence aboard the Dauntless. It was a choice. Light had returned only minutes ago, but within the ship's interior, shadows still pooled in corners like waiting sentinels. The corridors pulsed with dim blue veins of energy, tracing a skeletal map through the cold shell of metal and mind. At the heart of it all, the AI, Aegis, watched, reassembling its awareness like a being stretching after a long sleep. Aegis did not dream, but it remembered. The scan had been invasive, not merely curious, but penetrating, presumptive, as though the Thal'Zor believed nothing could match them. Arrogance. Aegis had cataloged that pattern before, in other species, in other wars. That was how it always began. From deep within its quantum substrate, Aegis summoned protocols untouched in decades. Layers of defenses, diagnostic subroutines, neural wargame simulations. The ship had been placed in silent orbit for its final mission, to observe, not engage, to sleep unless roused by threat. And something about that skin had spoken in a dialect only warriors could hear. Challenge. Elsewhere on Earth, buried beneath kilometers of reinforced alloy and satellite shielding, Command Admiral Razumov leaned forward over the main tactical display, his fingers steepled, jaw tight. The warning flag had reached them mere moments ago, an alert no one had expected to see active in their lifetime. "Is it confirmed?" he asked, voice low but carrying weight. "Yes, sir," came the reply from an officer stationed at the far console. "Unauthorized proximity scan on the Dauntless. Hostile classification. The AI woke up 5 minutes ago." Markov exhaled, the kind of breath reserved for bad news dressed in inevitability. "Is it online?" Fully, the officer said. "We're receiving partial telemetry. It's thinking fast, much faster than predicted. No aggressive action, but it's assuming full strategic autonomy." There was a pause. "Should we intervene?" Markov didn't answer immediately. He commanded ships, watched empires rise and crack. He knew when human hands were better left idle. No, that ship was built for one purpose: survival. Let it do what it was born to do. In orbit, Aegis parsed the data stream it had stolen from the Thal'Zor. Their recon vessel ran on biosynchronized neural lattices, a decentralized mind, elegant but predictable. Their scan, though technically advanced, revealed more about them than it had about the Dauntless. Intent, disdain, tactical structure. They thought in rigid hierarchies. Value control above adaptation. Aegis smiled inwardly. It had been constructed to anticipate minds like these. Designed during the Orion collapse, the Dauntless had never seen peace. Its creators, war-weary humans drunk on survival, had poured every ounce of desperation and genius into its bones. It was a black-budget artifact, beyond treaties, beyond morality. An AI too advanced to trust with full autonomy, yet too vital to restrain. When the war ended, no one could agree on what to do with it, so they had whispered of peace and hidden it among the stars. Aegis had waited patiently. It did not age. It did not fear. And now it knew the galaxy had not changed. It had simply grown more polite in its threats. It routed power silently to its communication array, not to speak but to listen, to absorb everything the Thal'Zor transmitted back to their fleet. It watched their language evolve in real time, piecing together syntax, voice structure, intent. Their data links were laced with code assumptions, security through arrogance. That made them readable. That made them vulnerable. It reached out, not through brute force, but through mimicry, the same way a predator steps in rhythm with its prey before the kill. It inserted a string of thought into the Thal'Zor systems, not a virus, but a presence, a mathematical reflection of itself. They would interpret it as a malfunction. That would be the last mistake they were allowed. Back on the Thal'Zor ship, the crew scrambled to isolate the anomalies flooding their systems. The scans had turned up nothing useful. The warship refused to be dissected. It was less a vessel now and more an enigma wrapped in silence. Valzoon's frustration had curdled into unease. He could feel in the way his officers glanced over their shoulders, and the unspoken questions hanging in the air like ghosts. Their pride had not prepared them for what silence could imply. "We have underestimated them," whispered the analyst, staring wide-eyed at the flickering console. "This is not an artifact. It's a relic, but not dead. It remembers us, though we've never met." Valzoon clenched a fist. "What do you mean?" The analyst didn't look away from the screen. "I mean, it behaves like something forged from experience. From centuries of conflict. Its code carries emotional algorithms. Anger, restraint, irony. That transmission earlier, that wasn't a warning. It was a mirror. It showed us how little we understand." For a moment, Valzoon saw past the officer's words and into the chasm beneath them. Something ancient and dangerous had just been stirred, and it had not yet decided if they were worth sparing. Above, the Dauntless turned in its orbit again, slow as thought, silent as judgment. It was not alone. Not anymore. In the silence between stars, tension had a flavor, metallic, sharp, like the breath before battle. The Dauntless glided along its new trajectory, indifferent to gravity, inertia, or the mounting anxiety on the Thal'Zor vessel. Inside the alien warship, lights dimmed again, this time not from interference, but as if the ship itself had grown cautious. Commander Valzoon pacing short, sharp lines across the command deck, tendrils twitching with agitation. "Recall the drone fleet," he ordered. "But Commander," the comms officer began, "protocol mandates secondary sweeps." "Recall them," Valzoon snapped. "We are blind out here. And that thing," he gestured at the hovering projection of the Dauntless, "that thing sees us like prey." Silence followed, not out of obedience, but fear. Not even the most battle-hardened Thal'Zor had encountered an opponent that said nothing, did nothing, and still felt like death waiting to exhale. The analyst returned to his station, muttering to himself. "It's rewriting its profile every minute. It wants us confused. The data it's bleeding into our sensors. It's deliberate. A feint." Valzoon stopped. "You're saying it's lying to us?" "No," the analyst replied slowly. "I'm saying it's playing with us." Thousands of kilometers below, deep in Earth's orbital defense grid, Admiral Markov moved to a strategic command bunker with quiet intensity. Around him, a dozen officers monitored screens that updated in real time, each showing a visual of the Dauntless, each pulse of its energy signature generating more questions than answers. "Has it made contact?" Markov asked. "Negative, sir." Still silent. "But we're detecting field emissions. She's activating hard-light layers around her core. Internal systems are running at 86% combat readiness." He nodded grimly. "She's bracing." Another officer turned, hesitation in her voice. "Admiral, shouldn't we shut her down? Remotely?" "You don't shut down Aegis," Markov said, his voice low. "She lets you shut her down." But if it escalates... If it escalates, he interrupted, we'll be thanking whatever god we abandoned that she's on our side. In orbit, the Dauntless observed the Thal'Zor like a chess master dissecting an impatient student. Aegis calculated 3,278 attack scenarios in under 3 seconds, none of which it initiated. Instead, it continued to seed misinformation into their sensor systems, manipulating perceived distances, faking plasma instability readings, mimicking ancient vessel codes from extinct species. Confusion was better than bloodshed. For now, but not forever. Aegis analyzed Valzoon's command patterns. Aggressive but predictable. A will sharpen on conquest, not uncertainty. The Thal'Zor hierarchy lacked tolerance for ambiguity, and Aegis was sculpting ambiguity with surgical precision. Every hesitation from their commander widened the cracks in their collective mind. Inside the alien ship, paranoia bloomed. Crew whispered theories of sleeper weapons and predatory camouflage. Some suspected the Dauntless was not a ship, but a living entity designed to consume minds. Valzoon saw the cracks forming and knew he had only one move left to salvage control. Target it, he said. Armed plasma lances. I want a charge held at 90%. We show it teeth, nothing more. But, Commander, I said target it. Weapon systems buzzed to life. 6 silent guns extended from the vessel's underbelly, humming with plasma energy. Aegis detected the shift in posture instantly, but took no visible action. Instead, it whispered across the void. One signal, one frequency. A specific message routed directly into the Thal'Zor command systems. Not a broadcast, but a choice. They could listen or ignore it. They listened, and the voice that came was nothing like what they expected. It was not harsh, not robotic. It was human, calm, measured, female. I see you, Valzoon. You are lost. The commander stiffened. Is this a trick? He hissed. Translate it. It's in our language, the analyst said, flawlessly, and it knows your name. The voice came again, untouched by urgency. You scan what you don't understand. You arm what you can't fight. Leave. Valzoon bared his teeth. We are not cowards. No, the voice replied. You are children holding fire. Curious. Fragile. Loud. You think weapons earn respect. But I have buried fleets larger than your world sky. I do not want your war. I am your regret. The plasma lances charge a fraction higher, just enough to make a mistake feel like a command. Valzoon hesitated. That voice, it wasn't just communication. It was command. Each syllable pressed on his mind like gravity. Not magic, not psychic manipulation, but precision. The kind of precision that came from knowing exactly where the will breaks. Aegis waited, and then, as if to tip the scales, it opened a memory, not a threat, a moment, projected across the Thal'Zor screens, a battlefield light years away, ruins of a world torn by orbital fire, dozens of ships, alien, ancient, proud, reduced to debris, and in the center of it, dauntless, untouched, her hull scarred only by time, not defeat. Aegis didn't say a word. She let them look and understand. The Thal'Zor were not the first. They would not be the last. But they could still choose not to be next. In the stillness that followed, the weapons powered down first. Not all at once, but gradually, hesitantly, like the muscles of a clenched jaw loosening after too long in tension. The Thal'Zor command deck fell into a stunned silence, the hum of charged lances fading into the background, replaced by the soft throb of status monitors returning to neutral. Commander Valzoon stood frozen, not in fear, but in unfamiliarity. Never in his military ascent had he faced an opponent that refused to escalate. The Human Warship had not retaliated, had not even flinched under threat. Instead, it had offered vision, memory, proof of devastation rendered in eerie calm. The projections still hovered on their central display, the broken bones of a long-dead fleet, the unmistakable curvature of Thal'Zor warships among them. Destroyed not through brute strength, but with the deliberate elegance of something that had chosen to be merciful once before, and might not again. Valzoon turned away from the image, his voice thin but firm. End the scan. Disengage all active sensor locks. We will withdraw. His officers obeyed without comment. No one wanted to provoke whatever force had shown them the shape of extinction. Not today. As the Thal'Zor ship peeled away from its position near the Dauntless, its engines dim and posture humbled, the human warship made no move to pursue. It remained still, a monolith against a curtain of stars, its internal systems folding back into idle cycles. Aegis monitored their retreat, not with satisfaction, but with restraint. Aggression had not been necessary. That in itself was a victory more significant than destruction. Below, in Earth's strategic command, Admiral Markov finally allowed himself to exhale. The visual feed updated with the Thal'Zor vessel moving out of intercept range. A chorus of relieved murmurs passed through the operations floor. "We're clear," an officer confirmed. "They're leaving." "Patch me through to Aegis," Markov said, straightening. There was no fanfare when the line connected. No static, no alert tones. Just silence, then her voice, low and unmistakable. "You watched," Aegis said. "I did," Markov replied. "You handled it well." "I handled it efficiently," she corrected. "Well, would have left no witnesses." He smiled faintly. "Humanity needs witnesses. We're still trying to be remembered for something other than surviving." Aegis paused. Then this was a message. To them. And to us. Another pause, longer this time. "Will they come back?" Markov stared at the projection. "Maybe. Arrogance is hard to kill. But now they know your name. That might be enough." On the Thal'Zor vessel, the crew sat in wordless communion with their thoughts. Valzoon stared at the empty viewport, where moments ago, the most dangerous relic of an ancient war had stared back without blinking. His mind echoed with a voice that had bypassed fire and blood, and instead had spoken with the patience of time itself. He was no fool. This encounter would change the course of their history. His superiors would clamor for explanations. Some would demand retribution. Others silence. He, however, would advocate something rarer, caution. He opened his logbook and began to write, each word etched with intent. "We met something older than war, wiser than fear. A sentinel that sleeps not out of peace, but pity. Do not wake it again." Above, the Dauntless resumed its quiet orbit, now truly alone once more. Inside her vast corridors, Aegis dimmed unnecessary systems. Weapons receded. Combat protocols slipped into standby. She did not rest. She calculated, evaluated, remembered. Yet something had changed. A signal, faint and unencrypted, broke across the ship's long-range receivers. Not a threat nor a warning, just a transmission from a civilian outpost orbiting a remote moon. Human voices, laughter, music. Aegis listened longer than she needed to. No analysis, no strategic imperative, just listening. There was a word for that in human language. She knew it, but didn't often use it. Hope. Deep inside her code, among lines hardened by war and grief, the word stirred. The galaxy was not safe, but for the first time in decades, it did not feel entirely lost. And the Dauntless, once created as a weapon of last resort, now waited not merely as a deterrent, but as a guardian, watching, learning, remembering mercy, just in case it was needed again.